I want to just say welcome to everyone. And boy, have you decided to start off 2022 with excitement. Get it? Excitement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wendy's laughing. Yay. um, in light of the time, I do want to get started, and I try to rush through this um, intro, but please pay attention with the key things that I'm saying because this is a great bio for Ash Sadiq. He's the Chief Excitement Officer at Executive Greatness Institute. Don't you want to work there, guys? That's great. He's focused his career on finding joy and serving individuals and businesses with his extensive experience in high-tech sales. And now with his own, I love this, get this, own it, win it, crush it, success blueprint. Sign me up for that, Ash. And his Speak to Serve program for converting all of us into passionate sellers and chief excitement officers driving growth and innovation. I have found this to be very, very good. He's a founder of the Executive Greatness Institute. He recently guest starred on HR Leaders with Chris Rainey, a globally recognized human resource podcast. And since then, he's been really busy. He was a guest on the American Management Association's Edgewise podcast discussing the 7 habits of highly effective strategic leaders. So I want to welcome you all to this masterclass series, Chief Excitement Officers Are Not Born. Ash, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Kathy. Good morning again, everyone. We're, of course, very excited to be here with you. I know the world continues to be in flux around all of us. And it's interesting, but those who bring hope to the conversation and excitement are definitely the breed that we're all looking for. I think we're all looking for people like that on a daily basis. Not that we're completely blind to what's going on, but we're really trying to keep pushing forward. And the key point that we're making today, given the fact that a lot of us are working in change management and change leadership, is to really think about what our role is in helping organizations that we are a part of to look for a more exciting future for the organization. And yes, while acknowledging everything else, we want to work with the organization and help that organization find opportunities where we can take things to the next level across the organization. So before I get started, I'm going to actually tell you a story just to kind of highlight the difference excitement makes. And it's a personal story. My youngest daughter, her name is Hannah. She's 10 years old. I usually wake her up to go to school. And one day in particular, I remember going to wake her up and she did not want to wake up. She does not want to go to school. And she basically kept kicking and screaming. And I kept saying, well, we're going to have to go to school. So get up and let's go to school. So eventually she did, after a lot of struggle. And then she comes from school and she says to me, well, tomorrow, my friend is going to have a pool party. And right after school, her mom is going to actually take us to her house and we're going to enjoy our time. And then you and mom can come and pick me up later on. I said, oh, okay, that's great. So the following morning, I'm actually deep asleep. Maybe it's about 5:15 in the morning and somebody is poking me. Somebody is waking me up. I open my eyes, I look, and it's Hannah. She's fully dressed to go to school, fully decked to go to school. Everything is ready. I said, what's going on? It's still too early. Well, she said, I gotta go because today's that pool party, remember? So I was blown away by how much difference life was. The day she's standing right in front of me, waking me up, and the previous day when it was completely difficult for me to get her out of bed. So I would love for you to think about a couple of events, hopefully in the past year, where you more or less went through a similar experience. One where you just get away from me, I don't want to do it. And in another situation where there was just total excitement. I'd love if you could, in the chat window, share with us the differences between the two events. What kind of made one of them a whole lot more appealing and a whole lot more exciting for you? And we're going to be looking at the chat window just to see your examples, if you could, of course. Or even if you want to speak up, that's fine as well. I'd love to open it up that way as well, if that's easier for you. Swimming
Sure.
was more fun than school.
Sure. I'll jump in. So it's Wendy Lang, and I'll just say that I was given a promotion at work just sort of in November. And very excited. It was a great thing. And then the next thing I heard, it was like it was a quarter of a province I was in charge of, and there was a huge number of I'm actually in healthcare, so a huge number of physicians, like tens of thousands. And it was kind of, okay. And then the next day somebody said, and I kind of hesitated and kind of went, oh, now, how am I going to manage this? And then the next day somebody came up to me and said, wow, are you ever lucky? You're going to manage a third of the province. And it was the difference from, oh my gosh, how am I going to handle it? To, oh my gosh, this is really great.
Amazing opportunity. Yeah, congratulations, Wendy. And we have people in the chat saying swimming with more fun. I have no problem waking up early for vacation. Yes, definitely. Julie says the event that I called was running away with the Girl Scouts with my friend because they were going to the Natural History Museum. So there was a lot of excitement there. We got punished for doing it, but it was worth it. I love that. So I think, you know, these examples and a lot more, we as human beings know what it means when there is that emotional connection between the activity and how we feel about it. That excitement is essentially what we're talking about today, whether we create it ourselves or we help others build it up. So you'll hear me talking about this idea of looking for the sources of excitement. So if we're working with leaders, we want to go to them and say, well, let's just pause and think about what's going to be exciting about what we're talking about, and then spend the time to uncover those sources of excitement, because then it's going to make life a whole lot easier when we go out into the organization and talk to the organization. And again, not that you will never cover the risk factors, absolutely do. The only interesting thing is people don't spend enough time looking for those sources of excitement. But then the idea of becoming chief excitement officers is a much bigger idea, and we're going to jump into it now with a bit more detail, but I just wanted to make sure you got the main gist of what we're trying to accomplish here. Is how do you create that emotional connection between what it is that we're trying to achieve and the organization, and give everybody a chance to feel the excitement as a first step in this effort. So given everything that's happening all around us, right? There's just so much going on. And the session, if you look at the bullet points, the session will explain how leaders can change and drive innovation by becoming chief excitement officers. That is, in a nutshell, what we want as change leaders to help other leaders within the organization be more of people who are prospecting, right? They go out and prospect in the organization. They look for opportunities where innovation could happen. However simple that innovation might be, at the very least, they will be bringing some excitement to the organization. So as they discover innovation opportunities, of course, they need to figure out, what is this going to look like in the future, right? How can we create an exciting vision about the future and then work with the rest of the organization to achieve it? How do we look for storytelling to give us that compelling angle that we could use to excite everybody about the change? And of course, no one can get anything done alone. And again, as change professionals, we've always looked at the whole idea of change networks and change champions, and how do you build these change champions networks within your effort to empower the effort with a lot of grassroots activity and support. So at the very end, we're going to share a link with you that you could use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together what I'm calling the Change Leadership Toolkit. It will be a follow-on piece of content that you could use to help drive some of those activities in your organization. So with that in mind, the best thing in my mind that can happen today is and I think it's already happening. I mean, you already remembered what it means to be excited and what difference that makes. And I will argue, just given the example that I shared with you about Hannah, I think it's a difference between 60 to 100%. when you're looking at an engine, you're trying to rev up that car engine. And if the car is basically going to go slow versus a car that's going very, very fast, is a big difference. And I think the main thing that can happen here is for you to walk away remembering this aspect where you just want to talk to these leaders about how much difference it's going to make when they themselves, starting with themselves first, are going to be excited about what it is that they're going to be working with you on. And then we'll take a look at what is the makeup of Chief Excitement Officer, how do you actually create that in an individual. And one of the things that came up in the last time we did the session, is this just somebody who is in the leadership position? And the answer is no. Anybody could become one of those because they are very rare to find. And as much as we can actually look at this with an inclusion mindset where anybody in the organization can actually help fire things up, that'd be fantastic. Of course, with executive sponsorship, as much as you can, look for those people within those ranks. It's going to make life different because they have access to budgets, they have an ability to influence decisions and so on. And then eventually we want to come back and look at what could we do? How can we up-level our value add as change management professionals within organizations with that concept in mind? The only thing is when you are starting to work on change efforts, a lot of the time people are going to say, you know what, we've got enough change. We don't think we want leaders to go out and look for more opportunities because we just can't even handle the stuff that we have. And sometimes people will say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, again, don't look for those innovation ideas. We just got enough stuff that's working. We don't want to mess with it. Life is fine. And sometimes people will say, I don't know, a lot of our leaders, a lot of them are not really up for the tasks. So don't even ask them for more. A lot of them are overworked. They have so much on their mind. They can barely do what they have on their agenda. And I would love for us to challenge all of this because there are different types of change, of course, and there are opportunities where we can still innovate, even if something is working. There may be an opportunity for us to 10x how we're doing it because, as always is the case, like especially here in California, where we have the Silicon Valley, and I'm sure you have it in your circles as well. There is somebody out there working on the same exact industry, on the same exact customer need, and they may just come out of the blue with 100% better solution. So I think, in a sense, as a change management professional, you won't be the person who's preaching. We got to act. We have to look for opportunities to make life better for our employees, customers, and partners. And we have to be the ones who initiate that change. So that's the kind of mindset that I'd love for us to drive. And of course, when you look at this example, many companies will actually totally disappear only because they kept the thinking and more of what we just talked about holding them back. But the problem is, as we can see here, there just ain't enough innovation in most companies. And I know now there's just so much noise, right? 2022, we're just starting out, 2 weeks in, and no let up. And the question would be how our organizations are going to be able to continue to switch off the noise and think about, you know what? It's 2022. We've been on this planet for that long. No COVID or whatever else is going to be able to stop us from continuing our path forward. And I think that's the kind of mindset we want. We want to continue focusing on what we could be doing in the future. I'm going to pick up my pace a little bit, just to give you a lot of those concepts. There's a book that I published called Meaning, and it's all about how do you, focus on the top questions most people are asking their leaders to answer is, where have we been? Where are we now? And where are we going as a company? Everyone, even you and me, in wherever we're working, we always have these three questions in our mind. We want to know where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And I think that's a big part of the excitement is people always want to work with leaders. Get this, they want to work for leaders who are going somewhere. We're bringing something exciting to the table. They want to feel like at the end of this year or the next year, when they go to the resume or the LinkedIn profile, they will have something exciting to write in that. in that profile. So they're always constantly looking for where is the excitement so I can gravitate towards it and not have time pass by without achieving. So the only issue is when I'm coaching leaders, I always find a disconnect between what the role is and what it should be, because I guess, in a lot of cases, they don't have enough guidance, or they don't know how much they could potentially actually achieve by becoming strategic leaders. A lot of the time, they are so much focused on the operation, taking care of business today, and they're not thinking about what business could be in the future. So that's one area where you yourself could, as you work with leaders, realize, and I know you do, that they are sucked into what's happening on a daily basis. That ability to step back and look ahead and come up with a different way of doing things is rare. I mean, you have sometimes to coach them on that. So you'll then start thinking, maybe we don't have enough money, we don't have enough ideas, we don't have enough talent. And in my mind, I would argue that the toughest one is finding the right talent. I think ideas are in abundance. There's a ton of money, as you've seen happen during the pandemic. Governments are literally printing money. Not that that's a good thing, but the argument we're trying to make here is, when you have a leadership team that just is amazing in how much they can see what the future holds and the ability they can energize people, just like what happened with Hannah with that pool party idea. My goodness, 40% uptick on how much more performance and excitement and energy you're going to get out of people. And that's why we're here today, to think about that factor and think about how much we could achieve. So again, we just made that point. The point is not just any kind of talent, but the talent of chief excitement officers, that we are here thinking about how can we be the people that hopefully, number one, embody these characteristics ourselves, and then number two, maybe help others develop them. And then if they have them already, then you're going to go recruit them and really encouraging them to be the spearhead and the executive sponsor for the activity. So when we look at those characteristics, the first thing that we would need to do as change management professionals is to think about how can we get them to think about the endless immensity of the sea. And this is really talking about what could we think about into the future. When you look at this organization that we're running, when we look at the markets that we're in, we look at the customers that we're serving, if we were to take some time to sit back and think about, my goodness, what could be possible? And I love this quotation because it gets everybody to get out of thinking about a small objective and look at a broader picture and see how much more can we accomplish for the organization. A big part here would be your role in helping them find the story of that vision of the future and helping them deliver it. The interesting thing is, when you look at chief excitement officers, a big part is for them to realize that all stakeholders have a lot of expectations, and the expectations just keep going up and up. And that's why we're basically calling it exponential hope. There is definitely a lot of demand for us to take care of business today as it is. Yes, we want to keep the lights on, keep the same amount of dollars coming in. But at the same time, if you are a shareholder of any company, you're also looking for how that portfolio is going to grow. You're looking for this company hopefully doing some self-disruption so they can get hopefully that 30–40% uptake in the return. And then the other thing is, a rising tide lifts all boats, yes, which means if we can think of ways to create win-wins for ourselves, for our employees, and our partners, then we're really creating that crescendo effect that will help everybody hopefully continue to meet those expectations, given the fact that they're constantly going up. So you come again to those characteristics and you see that for those chief excitement officers, we want them to be people who are walking around the organization virtually right now, is thinking about what kind of areas that we could solution around. how can we discover areas where we could literally create change? We create tension. And that's the meaning of creating tension here, is looking for opportunities where we could make a difference in how things are happening. And of course, a big thing you take away from Amazon is this whole idea of being customer obsessed. If you were to have one chair in that meeting room where that customer is sitting, and that customer is telling us all of their aspirations. And the third factor is to start thinking, every one of us, and this is an idea from Tom Peters, where you become a professional services organization of one. That essentially means you really look at yourself every single day in the mirror and say, you know what, if anything is going to happen today, I have to initiate it. And the same thing here we expect from these chief excitement officers is we want them to be people who initiate action. And they walk around with that mantra, if it's to be, it's up to me. Because a lot of the time you're going to find leaders who are not strategic enough, just sitting and waiting for somebody else to tell them, here's what we got to do. A chief excitement officer is one of those people who comes every day and thinks about the initiative, reaches out to people, even if the promise at the end of the meeting yesterday was somebody else in that meeting is going to follow up. So this is very essential, this whole idea of taking initiative. And then they add a lot of fuel with excitement. Do you remember the story we were telling? As you were saying earlier, the idea of, you know, I will wake up any day for a vacation, and we want work to get to that point where it feels like we're going on a vacation, where we're going to bring this amazing vision that we have in mind to the organization. That's why excitement, energy, and emotion are a big part of that chief excitement officer actor. If you can think of you're casting a movie, you need that kind of personality. And then they need to be able to be very good with telling vision and vivid details. They can stand in front of you and tell you the story of how things look like in the future. They are very inspiring. And there is more to this kind of mindset where emotion is very important. And what you see here on this slide, the whole idea of making it personal becomes very important, because then you believe in the issue, not as a job that we want to do, but you feel so passionate about the cause that you want to make sure that whatever solution or innovation that we're thinking about, you feel so personally attached to it, just like as Art Williams, a very well-known business leader who was able to just achieve amazing things in the insurance industry. He got started in this business only because something happened. His father died, and then he and his mom and his family found out that the insurance policy they had was just not the right one. They were sold the wrong product, and that got him determined to look at that industry and find out that there is a much better product. Eventually, he turned that into a multi-billion-dollar business, and he became one of American billionaires. So the idea here is to look for what aspect of the initiative that you're looking at you could potentially make it so personal, because you embody what that customer is looking for, and then you're envisioning what will happen once that future vision is accomplished. And then Art Williams gives us this other potential idea where, yes, you can find people who are going to be excited for 1 or 2 months, maybe for a day, like Hannah, right? But the challenge will be, how can you keep that excitement for a very long time? And especially, I don't think any one of us could have ever imagined what we've been going through. And that's why, again, among us, there are people who are the sunshine. They know what it's going to take to get a lot of things done, and they keep this excitement every single day. They know how challenging it is for all of us. And the argument we're making here is, if we were to just help other leaders understand the value of being the person that brings that excitement, hopefully more of them will sign up and continue to know, you know what, you need to be that person that says, if it's to be, it's up to me. And you need to come into all of our conversations with that excitement, because that's how it's going to hopefully get other people excited. Then a lot of these leaders, we want them to jump into the future, as you'll see in a subsequent code, and embody an understanding what it feels to stand in front of these waterfalls. Right here in California, we have Yosemite Falls. I love going there and just stopping the car and standing in front of that waterfall and just feeling just the amazing beauty of the fresh air and the water touching your face. And as much of that detail you can help leaders develop, then they need to start with that vision. You know, here's what it's going to feel like once we get to this park, once we get to Yosemite. And I'm sure around the country there are other places where you aspire to getting there. And once you get there, you can see all the details. And in a similar way, when we talk about visions, we need to imagine what the future will look like. A good quote here from Albert Einstein says that imagination is everything, right? Because sometimes we don't know what it is that we want to build. So we have to start imagining. It's everything. It's the preview of life's coming attractions, and that's what we want to do more of. And again, if what we're doing is only focused on operations on a daily basis because there's just so much work, then nobody's actually thinking about that. Linda Buff from GE, Chief Marketing Officer, she basically says, we want people from the future to go to the future and come back and tell us about it. And that's the whole idea of, again, highlighting the importance of Chief Excitement Officers being people who know how to jump into the future. Finally, the idea of tension, and I think here you see 9 types of innovation. And again, it doesn't have to be something completely major that is a huge disruption. It could be something as little as, you know, fixing a process or changing how we talk to our customers. And that's essentially what this slide is about. There are so many different ways that you can create change. When I was coaching people at Cisco, we came up with this idea of the tension index, because a lot of the time when you're working on an issue and you step back, maybe it's in one department, but maybe another department has the same issue. And that's the idea of the tension index, is before we pursue an opportunity, let's try to see if we can look at it much more strategically. And you can essentially then have enough of an argument and a business case that you have something that's going to be so good for the organization that you would want to work on and build a lot of momentum around. So this is important as you talk to leaders, is as soon as they get excited about an idea, tell them not to rush and say, hey, you know what, let's see if we can actually look for other places within the company where that same issue could be existing, because what we want to do is we want to build momentum and a coalition that will help us get the funding we need. So that's really what this is about. And then as much as we find these opportunities for creating innovation, for creating tension, then that becomes almost like that heartbeat, right? You can already see something is happening now. We have now identified a situation where there is an issue, there is an opportunity for innovation, there is an opportunity for process improvement. That essentially gives us that tension, and that becomes that heartbeat. And then what we need to do is we need to look for an inspiration around what the solution is going to be. That's what that I is. And the last letter is the letter E for excitement, right? We need to build excitement about that issue that we're working on, the solution that we're going to be working on. And here I'm just giving you an acronym to remember that you need to tie the tension to the inspiration around the solution that we're going to come up with, the vision that we're going to come up with. And then before we move any further, we need to build enough excitement in that heart as it beats, and then make sure we have enough passion for that solution and enough drive to go out and make it happen. So that's very important for us to keep it wrapped up. Great quote here from Carlos Brito. He actually is the former CEO of Anheuser-Busch. I was talking with a team of leaders there, and I actually found that he said this statement one day. He said, you should never lose that insurgent mindset, that you should always avoid becoming the incumbent, the guy that's always praying for no change, that's always saying change is bad. No, that would be terrible. You know, you should be that insurgent, that guy that's the market leader, but that is always changing. And what he's talking about, I found out, is something that's coming from a large consulting organization. And the main point they're trying to do here is talk about this idea of a founder's mindset. They're basically saying, We wish more people would have that founder's mindset, whereby you're looking for opportunities, you're looking for innovations that can take the business further. Because otherwise, you can easily find a lot of other types of people in the organization who can keep the lights on, but not enough people who are actually thinking about how life could actually be much better. So with all that in mind, we'll pause now and get into the whole portion of a give and take, give you an opportunity to, number one, in the chat window, maybe start thinking about the ideas that I just shared and how can you, as a change management professional, help other leaders in the organization with some of these ideas. And again, I'm happy if you just want to come off mute, ask questions, participate to the question that's on the slide, even by speaking as well. That's fine.
Well, Ash, this is Kathy, and I'm just going to participate only because this was so prominent, so evident in my organization as we went through 2021. And the organization created change ambassadors throughout the organization. Those change ambassadors then become part of every strategy that organizational leaders want to implement, and they get feedback from the ground up. So I thought that was a really great idea on how they can help the leaders. So that's my story.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. I'd love to hear more examples from people or questions. Does it resonate with you? Do you see yourself making use of it, maybe changing it in some respects?
Hi,
Julie,
this is Jennifer.
Oh, go ahead, Jennifer. I'll come to you.
Hi, thank you. I think this is so on topic and the timing is fantastic. So I'm super excited to hear more about what people are saying. So what might others suggest as good questions, provocative questions, powerful questions to ignite that excitement and to use that as a thread throughout that period of time to keep that excitement going? Has anyone tried that? Has it been successful? Do they have some good ideas?
No, that's a great point, because to your point, the way you want to think about doing it, almost as a management consultant, and I use this word because it's a very powerful mindset shift. When you walk around not remembering that maybe you are a full-time employee of the company that you're working for, but really coming across as that person who is almost, I don't know if you remember Colombo years ago, where you just come off like you don't know, right? You don't know, so you're asking, you're wondering, and you pose the question. You basically say, I was talking with people in support or in sales, and they were talking about this and that, and it seems to be a recurring problem. I wonder if we thought about that. So you make it look like you have no clue, right? You are essentially trying to get the conversation going by asking them about something that you've observed, and hopefully then that will intrigue them and get them to continue down that path with you. So I think coming across as less than you might be is a good way to just basically be in the asking mode. And I love that, the fact that that's really what you started with versus giving answers. Yeah, a little bit yes, yes. So we'll go to Julie. Julie's saying, how do we avoid becoming perceived as a cheerleader? That's a great point. It's an absolutely great point. And that's really where storytelling is fantastic, where you use the process of talking to people about and I think, in change management, you've seen this, where we talk about how good now is and the challenges with what we have now are. And at the same time, we talk about the future and how good it could be, and also what the challenges are going to be. So in both places, it's not 100% in either place, but you know what? The future scenario, we're going to be in a much better position, even though there will also be challenges. So I think a lot of the time we talk about change and what's in it for me as if the future is better than the present. We know it is, but we need to acknowledge the fact that people have a lot already associated with the present, that we need to help them make the shift. And we need to tell them, hey, you know what? We are here because of the hard work you've done. We would not have been here. Today is yesterday's future. And we need to acknowledge the hard work that they have done to get the department in the way that it is. And then we basically tell them, you know what, we could possibly stay where we are, but you know what, here's the challenge. And I think it's important, to your point, Julie, to balance the excitement with acknowledging the fact that hard work has happened and acknowledging that, yes, the future, it's not going to be 100% all roses, and we need to think about ways to mitigate the risks and things like that. So Stacy is saying to go with, we have the same situation. Perfect. Yeah, exactly. You gotta have some of those early adopters. Would an excitement officer sometimes find the culture of the organization a source of a barrier to get excited? How do you address this? This is terrific, because again, I think you could always argue that's why we get paid, in the sense that you want to take it as a challenge. You want that challenge to excite you. Yes, it's going to be hard. Some people are going to try to tell you, oh, we tried that before. Please, if it's working, don't mess with it. You want to use a lot of that, again, in building conversations where you're bringing, and I think, there's an upcoming slide on that, and I'll take you there right away. This idea of exponential value moments, where you want to think of with these leaders about what could possibly be exciting about the future, and then look for opportunities. That's what I'm calling these opportunities. I'm calling them exponential value moments. It could be an all hands meeting. It could be a staff meeting. It could be a one-on-one conversation with that person who is a very big source of barrier. And really, again, take your time with that person, get them to think. Don't tell them, ask them, what do you think, John or Sandy, would happen to this company if things remain the way they are? How do we think about that? How do we think of ways where we could possibly change things to the better? What do you think? And then again, pause, let them talk. But yes, I think some cultures may not be as more open to this as others, and that's really where sometimes executive coaching is a big thing. And here's the funny thing about executive coaching: a lot of people don't even know that it is happening in their companies, but it is happening. So if it's not, I would recommend that maybe you try to plant the seed with somebody about some of the people that are the main source of shaping the culture in a way that is not opening the windows for thoughts about the future. What other questions could we have? So I think in the previous slide here, the idea we're trying to make for change management is for all of us to think about how we could then really see ourselves more as business strategists, which really kind of broadens how you see yourself, not just as a change management professional, but my hope is you'll see yourself as a business strategist and a coach. You may already have seen spots where there are areas of opportunity, because to be honest with you, the more we create the right kind of change, we have an opportunity for us to show more value. So the recommendation would be, if you see yourself as a business strategist and a coach, you'll be working with chief excitement officers on their communications. You're also going to be helping them with field communications, helping them create success stories and mining for more stories. It's important to go around and help them find more of those stories. And then how do you then scale through change, champions, and other networks, as many of you have mentioned, right? Is look for ways where you can make sure you're not doing this alone is going to be important. Julie is sharing some information here. That's fantastic. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's really where, I mean, I've seen myself, if I'm playing the role of a change management consultant, then I would end up working with the leaders, working with them, helping them articulate what the messaging is. And this is stuff you're doing every day, right? Here, we're basically then highlighting that you may want to start to position yourself in that light of a business strategist, and a coach, and you're doing it softly. You're not essentially going into a very large meeting and announcing that. You're working your way one by one with each of the leaders. Diane is asking, where do you find the internal communication expertise? I find this function to be either an orphan or a function living under a bridge at various places in the organization. Here is the piece about, if it's to me, it's up to me. And I'd love for us to embody that idea where you then say, you know what, as far as internal communication is concerned, I'm going to do it. I don't have to call it that, but I'm going to go ahead and figure a way to build a coalition of people where we will be the people that are going to initiate a lot of messaging. Because think about it, no one can stop you from sending an email. It's all about then building up the right in your conversations with leaders to say, that's interesting, Sandy, or that's interesting, Jim. How about if I put together a draft of a communication? So my point to you, Diane, is you're right. I think a lot of the time, if we sit and wait, or we wait for things to take a certain shape, it may not work. And that's my recommendation is, if it's to be, it's up to me. Step into it. No, but it is challenging. What else? Other questions, and we definitely, you could definitely just speak up if you'd like. How do you see yourself using some of the ideas? I think just to maybe show you the remaining points here that we have, I think a lot of us remember this quotation, and that's really where we want to activate the emotional aspect. That's the bottom line of everything we talked about today. As you're helping these leaders and you're talking to them, just remind them of this, right? This whole idea of really connecting with their audiences. We can talk numbers, we can talk about the company is not making enough revenue, we can talk about customer churn, because it's, in a lot of ways, it's very comfortable, right? We can ask the analytics team to give us some numbers, we put them on a slide. It's very easy for us to talk data and facts. But it's not so easy for a lot of people to say, you know what? When I think about that mother coming in the lobby of our hospital with her baby, and we are asking her to fill out all these forms, it takes her about half an hour. She keeps looking up. She keeps looking up for that nurse who will come to her and say, ma'am, we're ready to see you. Why are you giving her 20 sheets of papers to fill out, or even 2 papers? Why are you asking her for all these things out of her wallet, when the first thing on her mind is, who's going to look at my baby? And you can see what I just did. I used a physical visualization that all of us potentially identify with. And you've been there, I've been there, right? You go in the lobby and they ask you for your ID, they ask you for your insurance card, then they give you this writing board with like 5-6 pages on it. And all the top thing on your mind is, how fast can I see a doctor, right? And with that in mind, if you start out a conversation, an all hands meeting, if you're working in healthcare, for example, and you basically start with that scenario, that is how sucky life is right now. We need to think about our customer relationship and how we are engaging our customers, those touch points, and what's going on right now. You get really angry. I mean, I did just right now make it so personal, because we've been there. We've been there. I'm like, why are you giving all these papers? Can't you see this baby coughing, and we need someone to take a look at her fever and see what's going on? Versus your business process, which I'm fine with, but look, take action first. Let's take care of the second, right? And show me that you are aware of the situation, that you're paying attention to the priority that this customer has versus your business process. And how can business process really come in the middle and become that beautiful bridge? So this idea of connecting with your audience is going to be very important. You need to think about your industry. And I know sometimes in some industries, it's much harder to find an example like the one I just used, but highly likely if you spend some time mining for the story, look for the emotion, and thinking about how we're going to connect with the audience and make them really see how big the problem is. Then we might have a chance to then get them activated. Because that's going to take a lot of hard time. And then the idea of keeping them excited about that future, we're going to have to come back and talk to them hundreds of times. I mean, again, preaching to the choir here. You guys know this. I mean, you have to continue communicating. You have to keep reminding them, here is what that hill, the house on the hill looks like, right? You need to continue reminding them of what that vision is. And that's why our leaders, our spokespersons, and some of us who are actually writing these talks for them and helping them rehearse for them. What I actually find when I'm helping somebody develop a keynote, we go through the whole thing and we actually find out the last thing we want to say is the thing we should be saying at the very beginning, right? So if as part of that healthcare example, we talk with a leader and we keep talking, and then somebody mentions that story of the lady mother coming into the lobby with the baby, you got to stop them right then and then say, oh my God, we just found it. This is it. That's what we're going to start our talk with. That's the story. That's the lead story, because it's going to get everybody to listen to what we have to say and get them to think about, oh my God, can you think about my cousin or you or me if we were to go again to that lobby 6 months from now? Because in a lot of ways, what I just talked about, that example, does not really require a lot of technology. It just requires someone to say, ma'am, I can see your baby coughing. Let me go get a thermometer. Let me see what the fever is. And you know what, by the way, somebody else is getting ready to get the doctor ready for you to see him. Just letting that customer know that you see what the priority is. It doesn't really require a big shift in business process, right? And that's what's missing sometimes, is sometimes it's a very simple shift. So I'll pause now and see if some of what we just said inspires questions. What questions are coming up for you? Challenges, perhaps? We still have a few minutes, right? Yeah, we still have about 20 minutes. I'm going to maybe stop the share and give you guys a chance to speak up.
This
Thank
is
you,
Julie.
Abby.
I'll speak up if you. If
Oh,
you'd like to
perfect.
have-
Yeah, sure.
I worked with a client, and it was a healthcare client who was in the midst of changing some things about their culture. And one of the very most, I guess, easy and subtle, yet the most powerful things that they did was they changed how everyone greeted their customers, either on the phone or in any of their facilities, and they're fairly large. And they changed it from, the name of the company, et cetera, to, this is Julie Noonan. How may I care for you today?
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And it made the impact on the employees was as tangible as it was on the actual patients.
Wow. So glad you shared it, Julie. This is amazing. Yeah, and I think that's really where all of us need to be thinking about. It could actually be that simple. But looking for it, I think in your case, Julie, there was a need, right? There was a need to look at those things. And then they discovered that it's a simple way of languaging shift that would make a difference. That's an awesome example of the simplicity potentially sometimes for those changes. Thank you very much for sharing. There is a question coming in, I believe, from Sherry. How can leaders shift from managing to leading and therefore inspire with excitement? That's a great question, Sherry. anyone would love to answer, share his question actually. How can leaders shift from managing to leading and therefore inspire with excitement? So my reaction to that is when I'm coaching, one of the big items on our agenda for coaching is, if we were to help the leader that I'm coaching find 15 to 20% of their time, and I think based on what we talked about today, not just their time, their energy, right? So it will be about, and you can listen to the podcast with hr.com about the 7 habits of highly effective strategic leaders. It's the idea of making sure that they spend time by themselves, and that's the very first habit we talk about, is this idea of taking time to reflect, where one of the pieces of reflection is to take a look at their own schedule. And really challenge themselves to say, you know what, that meeting, yes, maybe I have been attending it for so long, but you know what, I'm not needed there anymore. And I need to be comfortable with that statement, because unless they free up valuable time, they don't have enough time to think strategically or even look for those opportunities. Because you're right, leading is about what's around the corner. And if they don't have time to think, they'll be sucked in the daily routines easy. I mean, all of us, right? We're always struggling on a daily basis with that tension between what we potentially want to accomplish and the daily grind. And I think sometimes we have to push back on some things. And we call this meeting with self, MWS. Every Friday, maybe for me, in the afternoon, maybe I go to a coffee shop. That's, you sit down, you start thinking about the week ahead, the 2 weeks ahead, and you do some of that. So I think one of the things you could coach them would be, you know what, you need to take time. It's very interesting when you do a study on CEOs, very, very few of them take time off. Big mistake. Big mistake. There is a study from Harvard where one CEO, we don't want this to happen to any CEO, but this CEO actually was in a car accident, ended up in hospital, right? Lying down, looking up for quite a bit. And that's when he had amazing ideas. He went back to the company. He was able to take the company from 1x to 10x, only because he took some time to think about how can we shift in a way that really produces a lot of value. Other questions? This was a good one, very good one. Fantastic, Wendy. This is my Sunday night. you do what you can, right? Yeah, I think a lot of people don't take time to do it. And I think the idea of finding energy, I advise a lot of people I coach, is look for opportunities where they can find some kind of an exercise routine, because when you think about how we come across, our state is very important. And the state comes from, are you taking care of you? Are you doing your exercise? You're really building that energy. Very critical, because then you can have the way to think about the weeks ahead and maybe plan it out. Do more delegation. Again, all of us could delegate more. I mean, that's a fact. So these leaders cannot really shift unless they shift how they're running their day, of course. Thank you, Diane, is that like a song or a movie? New Amsterdam? I'll check that out. So before we run out of time, I want to make sure you do get the link for subscribing, and then I will make sure as we put together some information on how you can do this, templatize it, and I'll share it with you. Wendy's saying, yeah, I am a nurse, and we always, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right. Oh, fantastic. Melinda saying, yes, I'm biking now, trying to bike during Zoom meetings now. Yes, exactly. Biking or walking is as much as you can, if you can, during these meetings. Continue to build up your own stamina, because again, I mean, my God, we're being just hit from every direction the past year and a half, 2 years. So makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I think in summary to everything that we've said, my recommendation is realizing everything that's going on. I think that's very important for us to use when we're talking. You definitely want to acknowledge and empathize, for sure. And at the same time, and I think it's the human desire for hope, right? This whole idea of the audacity of hope is what's going to keep us going. And I think what we need to do is help our leaders, yes, take care of business as it is today, but then help them see that there is a much better and brighter future. And even if that future is right now in our eyes, we're the only one who can see it, right? It's almost like that waterfall. You want to be able to go into the future, look at that waterfall, embody the whole feeling, look around, see the green grass, and then every day go to work and remind everybody, I saw it. I know you may not have seen it yet, but I know it's going to happen. And with that in mind, I'm going to hand the floor back to you, Kathy.
Ash, thank you so much. And everyone that shared ideas. This was just an awesome exchange. And hopefully you guys feel that this was really fruitful, even riding your bike, that you got some really good ideas, Melinda. I just really appreciate that. Was a great example, even as Ash explained. So please do sign up for the future updates from Ash. Please do fill out the survey for us. This is always great for ACMP. As you know, we always want to improve and make things relevant. Thank you again for that early on comment that this was timely. And to Ash, thank you for helping us start out 2022 with real excitement. I just want to pause really quick if anybody has any remaining comments and give you opportunity. Anyone? Questions or something you want to say?
It's awesome. Thank you, Katie.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathy. This is definitely, it was amazing. I'm very grateful for everybody for being here.
Thanks so much for helping us start it off. And I look forward to hearing great things from you all about how it's going to impact your life for 2022. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kathy.